Hi, welcome to the Signature Leadership Podcast, where we watch world-class leaders uncover their authentic selves. See, in order to be a great leader, you need to be skilled at communicating your vision in a way that's personal to you and relatable, motivating, and inspiring to your team. And today, we have with us a leader in her field, Shanice Miller. Shanice is a business productivity consultant who helps small startups to multi-million-dollar businesses save hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing less. So I think I need to hire you when this is over. Shanice has appeared on BET, Forbes, CNN, HuffPost, and many more. Welcome, Shanice.
Thank you so much for having me, Jamie. And yes, I know that you're always constantly flying, so managing that schedule is a doozy.
That is true. So, Shanice, I'd like to jump right into it. What we're going to do now is, in just a 20-minute time period, give or take, I'm going to ask you what one leadership problem or possibility is, and by the end of the conversation, I want to see if we can reframe that into an opportunity that will help you as a leader move to even bigger and better things with solving this challenge. So, what's a leadership challenge or possibility you have right now?
Oh, I have two good ones, but I think right now it's really on going in and focusing more to find out which particular niche I want to really niche down to. Right now, my niche is I am niche down to service providers, coaches, and consultants, but I want to niche down a little bit more because I know that I can make templated systems. I can really do a lot faster and better work for a smaller niche population. So just really because I have such wonderful results for my photography clients, for my interior design clients, a lot of my creatives get really good results. And I just want to really hone in on and see, okay, where can I make the most impact?
And what's the real challenge you're finding in discovering or really zoning in on that niche?
To say no to other niches that want to schedule that results session.
Okay, so saying no is being a challenge. Got it.
In that instance, I
Yeah,
don't
exactly.
have a problem saying no in other other areas, but
Yeah, amazing. Do you think this is the best goal to pursue right now for you?
I'm thinking it is. There were a couple of different goals I had, such as moving myself out of the business as well. So having someone and really, I've been doing interviewing to see what would be a good person that I can put into that strategic role and making sure I have a couple of people who do my systems underneath me, but really getting someone into the strategic role.
Did that also include you not being the center of your own business and actually, in some ways, outsourcing or training other people to do what you do under you?
Correct.
That's
Yep.
correct. Okay. So on that note, I want to jump right in. So what I'm going to show you right now is what you sent to me just before we are getting together now, which is a sample of your handwriting, which you'll see in a moment on the screen right beside my face. And what this is as a handwriting analyst, I can see about 100 personality traits in a person's writing and an infinite number of patterns that exist to make you, Shanice, the unique person who you are. And this is what lies beneath the surface. This is how you're showing up. And there's no good or bad. These are your strengths and maybe even blind spots or areas like I have these too, where they might be holding us back or we might not even be aware of these. And what I'd like to do now is look at this very quickly, and I'm going to be referring to the screen and even making this even more in depth, even a close-up. And I'm going to come back to us to tell you what I think is happening with regard to some of the challenges that you're dealing with based on some of the insights from the handwriting. So bear with me for a second. So a few things I'm seeing. Your strengths are you've got a lot of self-confidence. So you've built this very strong sense of I. If you literally look at the I on I told you, it's the very first line. it might be difficult to see. That's as close up as I can get. That I represents a good sense of self. It's setting clear, strong boundaries with people. You walk with confidence. You command respect in social situations. People, when you walk into a room, even virtually, people really respond to you. So as a leader, and this is one of the things we're talking about, there's a lot of confidence. Now, you talked about, if we can jump right to one area, which is you talked about taking yourself potentially out of the business because you're doing too much, and to be at the center of things, it's a little bit hard to manage. Now, if you look at the D stroke, so if you look at the small d, I'm going to make a shape here in a minute. The small d stroke looks almost like a brace. So it's like this, like it's braced down. Like it looks like this. It's very subtle, but there's a little opening. And that sometimes represents when you get your mind set to something, you'll stubbornly move in that direction. And it's hard sometimes to be adaptable when you get your mind set on something. Now, I don't know what exactly that's connected to, but you just said that one of the challenges was, when we were talking earlier, I'm just reinforcing it with the actual data, is sometimes you have your mind set in a certain way and you double down on that, and it's hard for you to, if the word's not rigid, it's pushing against that. It's not stepping out of your
word is
comfort zone.
rigid.
Rigid, okay, yeah. Right? So you might want to look at that, but the thing is that you set very high goals for yourself. If you look at your small t in the writing, the bar on the line, almost like a cross, it's very high. It's very high and strong. So there's a strong willpower to go after your goals. And we'll connect all these in a minute. There's a lot more. We're not going to go through all of them. So excellent sense of your self-worth and your self-confidence. You sometimes are drilling down or bracing yourself when you feel that something has worked for you. And there's a lot of pride in the way that you're showing up in those areas. So sometimes pride is reaching up in the sky toward our goals, and you have high goals. And I would just challenge and ask you, is there times when you can, even right now, where you could let go of even what's worked well in the past for a better goal to pursue along those lines?
I think always.
Okay.
I can definitely be adaptable and make some of those transitions. I try to be open-minded, but I do know I can be rigid as well.
Right. Here's the thing about you, and we're all paradoxical. We all have these almost, they look like opposite traits within us. This is what I've seen with handwriting analysis and the psychology of it. I would say that you're a practical optimist. So you're a realist, but there's often, you'll look at a problem and you'll say, well, it is a challenge. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but how can we find something how can you find something constructive in this? And ultimately you believe that things will work out.
Yes.
And yet there's a cautiousness that you learn from actually your family, not you. I think this is growing up with your parental figures, is this, because it's in the last name, that's why I'm saying it, almost like this hand is needing some space, needing some caution before you trust and invest fully into something. So you need some data, you need some strategy, some systems that you see work before you fully invest in them. It's literally this hand giving me a little bit of space. And that could be reinforced in the printing, because if you look at the printing, there are gaps between each words that are quite significant gaps. Those gaps sometimes is someone who needs space, doesn't like to be pushed before they make a decision, trusting their own instincts, but ultimately, once they make that decision, they're going to throw themselves fully into it.
Wow, you're good.
So when we went back to our first question, so now I'm going to ask you some questions along these lines, is you clearly have a lot of self-confidence. You have good self-awareness because you've talked about maybe there's some rigidity to moving forward and a little bit of caution before you make those decisions. And yet your goals you set in the top 1% of leaders, very high, strong goals that you succeed. So what will it take for you, Shanice, to move forward and solve that? Or I'm going to reach out to you in a week and ask you what steps you took at the end of this, but what's one specific step that you could take that you haven't fully, because of maybe the rigidity, because of maybe the pride that it's worked this way before and I haven't put myself forward, that you could take that could put you out of your own limited focus toward the goal of what you said at the beginning around zoning in on the niche that you want?
Oh, that's a good question. So, well, zoning in on the niche, it's really about testing. And I think
Okay.
that's part of the rigidity as well, in having those systems in place, having that data to support it, because I do need that data, those systems. I need, and even with hiring, I have a whole outline of what I'm looking for. And I just need to do that more with the strategy portion. So if I'm talking about interviewing, finding someone to fill that strategy role, I just need to get really clear and focused. Let go of some of that rigidity, but I still need some parameters to get really focused on what it is I'm exactly looking for the person to do in the business that can do the same or a better, because I do know people come with more different experiences and they have better ideas and things like that than I do. I'm not the know-it-all at all, but letting them have that freedom to be able to go into that strategy area.
What's stopping you from finding that person in the next, say, 10 days?
Probably nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing would stop me from finding that person. I'll just have to go search and put out some job ads and just get clear today on exactly what it is I want that person to do and what type of strategy person I'm looking for.
So clarity of who that person is, a strategy of what you want them to do. And then what I have found doing leadership development work is that 80%, I couldn't believe this number, but it seems to be accurate from what I've heard as well, is 80% of leadership development strategies or programs fail because they don't have a very clear, even if it's a simple implementation strategy at the end of whatever that program is, or coaching, or year-end system. So I'm going to ask you, because I find that this sometimes is a block with the most successful people that I've spoken to, is kind of what you're saying, which is, if I emailed you in a week, which I'm going to do, you haven't asked me to do that, but I'm going to just send a quick hello in a week from now. So we're speaking on Friday. What would be like a micro step you could take that you're saying this publicly on a podcast, but also just you and me as new friends talking, that you could do within the next week that would put you one step closer to moving out of that, not lack of decision, but that just jumping into this, clarifying who that person is, strategizing as to what you need from them, and trying to hire them. Not trying, but taking a step toward finding that person. What could you do between now and next Friday?
The micro step is making that form. So part of my process is we really design. It's one of our things. We map out exactly what we're looking for, what we want. Yeah. And the first step is a hiring form. So a intake form for our particular hires or anything like that we're looking for, and all of the traits, so that I can kind of pre-screen those people first and see if they even meet the initial or the first step, to see if they're good with the strategy and where the vision that I have.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And the thing about your writing too, which I'm marking it up here as I'm looking at it, that's why I keep looking down, is the way you make decisions. And remember, handwriting is it's emotional how we respond emotionally. It's how we think in terms of, are we objective thinkers? Are we more emotional thinkers? The way you think is so consistently objective, where you're making decisions on logic and rational thought with just with just enough empathy and emotional intelligence, where you're looking into the humanity of that person, but you're very systematic in how you make rational, logical decisions. So I would say, and you've got good intuition, probably more intuition than you give yourself credit for, because that's that like sixth sense that sometimes it's hard to quantify. It seems abstract, but that objective, clear thinking mind, very rational. And you also have good intuition about people based on impressions with enough emotional intelligence, because the consistent line, it's hard to see if you're not do what I do, but each line I've been making notes on the line, it's all slightly to the right. So if you look at almost like a spectrum, it's slightly off to this side, but it's quite up and down, which is what you see in leaders, this objectiveness with enough empathy to really be able to talk to both their head and their heart. So you have everything you need. I mean, you don't need me to tell you this as someone who's just met you, but based on the writing, which is what I'm judging, not on anything to do with you or your body language. I just see your face anyways, or I'm not reading into you or being an empath. Everything here says that you have the ability right now to make an incredibly productive, efficient, and the right decision that you need to make, and only need to rely on yourself to do that when it comes to hiring the right person to offset some of the work and give you more time, like you say, to do less. Mm-hmm. Not just to do less, but to give yourself space, which you need, because you're the kind of person who likes their space. You like people, but you also need space in order to recover, to revitalize, to refresh your mind, your heart.
Yes, my friends tell me I am the most extroverted introvert they've ever met, because when I'm out, I'm having a great time talking to people. But when I'm in the house, I am in the house.
Yes. Yeah, you need space. There's the gaps between each of the actual words, like letters, like told or you. There's those consistent gaps. You're a situational extrovert. That's what you are. It's so true. So as we wrap up, we went through some of the traits. Thank you for sharing what the problem or possibility is. And we have an implementable next step to move from this, it's helped you get to where you are, this ability to brace down and to, move ahead, but yet that little bit of gap between actually taking that next step, because we're so focused on getting it right and just not perfect, but being too precise almost, if there's such a thing. So I am going to follow up in a week. And before we leave, Shanice, can you share one thing that you appreciated, took away, and you could even reinforce to take action on as a result of our conversation today?
Jamie, it was so many things that you pointed out. Just by my handwriting, I am deeply, deeply excited about this, while at the same time being so surprised that you could tell all of that by my handwriting. And just when you're talking about the high T's, being very objective in the way that I go about things, those are definitely things I can do some introspection on to see how I can use those strengths and strengthen them even more. So definitely going to do that. My one thing I did say I was going to do and will continue to do is make that intake form for that new hire to find someone that's going to take over that strategy part.
Perfect. Thank you, Shanice.
Thank you.
I appreciate your openness, your vulnerability, and for leading by example, because leaders do show a little bit of vulnerability, not wearing their emotions on their sleeves, but when they show up open and a little bit of vulnerability and authentic, I think other people feel that communication, and it allows them to open up as well and to be their best selves. So I want to thank you, and I appreciate you being a guest on the Signature Leadership Podcast.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to be less rigid.
Less rigid, yes. Yes, you're perfect the way you are. So thank you.